All right, so we're going to work on proving this identity here. And remember, the technique usually is to pick the more complicated side and work it to the simpler side. All right, so pretty clearly the left-hand side is more complicated, so we're going to start by working on that. So I'm going to write that side down, so 1 over secant of x minus 1 plus 1 divided by secant of x plus 1. And then we're going to try to decide on an algebraic maneuver here, or algebraic technique that is going to get us closer here. I've got two terms. My result needs to be one term, so I'm thinking in terms of common denominator. All right, so to get a common denominator, I'm going to multiply this fraction by secant x plus 1 divided by secant x plus 1. This side has a secant x plus 1. It needs a secant x minus 1, but if I multiply it on the bottom, I got to make sure I multiply it on the top. So secant x minus 1 on top as well. And when I combine these fractions together, this is what I'll get. On top, I'll have secant x plus 1 plus secant x minus 1, all divided by secant x plus 1, secant x minus 1 is going to be secant squared minus 1. So I'll write that, secant squared x minus 1. Okay? Now we're going to work on simplifying. So we have secant x plus secant and 1 minus 1. That ends up, we end up with 2 secant x on top divided by secant squared minus 1. Secant squared minus 1 is one of our identities. It's tan squared. So we can write this, tan squared x. Okay. Now at this point, what we ultimately want is 2 times cotangent times cosecant. Well, this 2 is pretty clearly there, so that's good. Now I need to figure out how this could be written as cotangent and cosecant. So I'm going to write this a little bit differently. So I'm going to write this as 2 divided by tangent of x times secant divided by tangent of x. Okay, and if I do that, this 2 over tangent, that's the 2 cotangent piece, right? So this becomes this here. All right, so that's good. We're getting closer. Now we're just hoping that this part on the right here can be changed into cosecant. So let's explore that real quick, just off to the right here. In fact, actually, let's keep it. My apologies. Let's just keep it going here. So secant, I can write that as 1 over cosine of x divided by sine over cosine of x. All right? And then I'm going to take and multiply by the reciprocal of sine over cosine. So 1 over cosine divided by sine over cosine. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is cosine over sine. It'll look like this. 2 cotangent times 1 over cosine times cosine over sine. Sorry for the angled writing here. Okay. This will become, we'll carry the 2 cotangent up here, so 2 cotangent of x. And then this 1 over cosine times cosine over sine, the cosine simplified to 1. I'll be left with 1 over sine. So this we can write as 1 over sine. But 1 over sine of x is cosecant. So our final answer then is what we wanted to prove, which is cosecant, 2 cotangent cosecant of x. Okay? And again, this is what we're going for. This is where we ended.